Hello and welcome everyone to Faith in an Ever Changing World Encouragement and Hope Faith Story. And I have with me today Ken Hobbs, and we're going to learn more about Ken and hear his powerful faith story right after this. Ken Hobbs is a Christ follower, and he's devoted his life to ministry, missions, and service in a marketplace ministry. He's also a senior vice president, financial coach, multiple brokerage owner operator of crusadercoaching.com and PRI Primerica, impacting the community nationwide with business coaching, training, and financial coaching services. Wow, you are a busy man, Ken.
Well, yes, it's such a time as this. God has given us the opportunity to be at this place, and our hearts are just so
Absolutely.
full.
I know, I know. Well, listen, if you will, Ken, please share your faith story with us.
I'd love to. I'd love to. Thank you first and foremost for the opportunity to speak to you and to your audience, and
Absolutely.
to be able to share, my not only my passion but my faith that has got us through. And I know that you had my wife on a little
Yes,
bit ago, and
Kimberly.
Kimberly with Women World Leaders, and was able
Yes.
to share. And I know you've been part of that, and I was part of that from the very beginning. It started as a little Bible study in our living room, and then we had
Mhm.
100 cars and stuff. So now what God's doing is amazing. But to talk about where I came from to get to where we are today, that Kimberly and I
Mhm.
both are just living in what God has for us, is that, I grew up a preacher's son. And as you know, the reputation of preacher's son, especially when they got
Yep.
grandfather who is a pastor as well too, and evangelist. So it was even more being a GPK,
You are well covered.
exactly. And that was part of my story growing
Oh,
up in that. And, I'm out here in the woods. I'm up in Ohio, and visiting my in-laws and having a beautiful fall weekend. And, see, I'm wearing my camouflage. I don't know if you
yeah.
can kind of
Yes.
tell I'm blending into the forest here. And the reason I did this is, this is also our branding for our ministry, United Men of Honor and Band of Brothers, and that type of thing. But what really resonates and what really goes through and helps with my faith story is that growing up being a preacher's son and a grandson of a preacher, and being around all kinds of, people in the ministry and stuff, is that I was a chameleon,
Yeah.
and as John Eldridge would talk about in Wild at Heart, and that's what we based our boot camps on, is that I was a poser. I grew up being whoever I was around is what I would blend in, and I would have camouflage, and that
Yeah.
was where I lived and where I did. And my mother and my dad divorced when I was really young, and my father went
Mm.
on to be a pastor, and my mom went and was a hippie for a period of time, and so there was a dichotomy of what to understand. And so wherever I was is what I was. And I didn't really understand my faith. I didn't understand the gospel of that it was a relationship, that it wasn't
Right.
religiosity, and it wasn't just rules and regulations. And then it wasn't really the world either, and
Mhm.
there was something going through. I kind of navigated through that, and my favorite color became gray as I was growing up, because my two sets of parents were so opposite in their philosophies and their thoughts and their
Mm.
feelings. And so I was able to, like I said, be able to be a chameleon, but,
Right.
to understand that God took me through all those times to
Mhm.
create a balanced person. I think that's really one of the giftings that I have, and going through the hurts and going through the trials of, being the preacher's son, and going through the extreme, the 70s and the charismaniacs and all the stuff that went on during those times, and understanding the world and here, and
Mm.
then understanding what was going on in the world, and with peace and love, and, the Jesus people and that type of thing, and understanding that I needed to find a way to where I fit in. and
Right.
become that. And I wanted to become my own man. You see, as Ken Hobbs II, I always joke around is that I'm named after my dad, and he wasn't very original when he named me, and so I was always that. And my mom hated Junior, so
Right.
that's why I'm the second, as you asked me before,
Yep.
and so I
I
kind of
want
understand why that is there, and so that, to be that. But I wanted to create my own person. I wanted to create my.
right.
I had this chip on my shoulder. I wanted to be somebody so bad, and to have make it be my own person, not
Yeah.
be part of what the church or my parents or whatever. And so I grew up and I went through and I had some challenges, had some life changes, got married when I was very young, and had my son when I was 3 or 4. But my faith story really comes into play is during those times. See,
Mm.
during that time when I was navigating through the jobs, and then even starting to my career in financial coaching, where I went, full time from day one, and not having any background, but understanding is that God had a purpose, a plan, and a purpose through this whole thing,
Mm.
to teach me that it wasn't about God up there playing whack-a-mole, waiting for me to
Right.
do something wrong. And but growing up with, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep if I should die. I mean, I was so
Yeah.
afraid that, everybody would say,
Yeah.
well, if you died, where are you going to go? And,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and understanding that there was peace, that there was grace, and there was relationship.
Mm.
And when I understand that Abba Father could
Mm.
really, really make an impact and have a relationship with me, then it was like having a relationship with my wife.
Yeah.
I didn't always agree with all the rules and regulations or the expectations that my wife has, but I honor them and I
Right.
respect them because I want to keep a relationship. Now, I don't
Right.
have to
Mhm.
honor and respect them to stay married, but it would probably help. Okay.
Yep.
The point is that the relationship is much closer when you are in alignment and you do follow
Exactly.
and
Yes.
honor and respect each other, and
Yes.
understanding that God loved me so much that he
Oh.
gave his son, and that he died to have a relationship with me, not have a relationship during these whatever amount of years God gives me on this earth, but to have a
Mhm.
relationship with me for eternity. And to
Eternity.
understand that, and how 200 years of godly men before me
Mm.
had an impact. See, I made my own decisions, but that 200 years of having godly men and having grandparents, and having a father, and having, that loved, and they were my prayer warriors, helped me
Mm.
make the right decisions to fix and to find solutions, and how to walk and how to come back. And one of the biggest impacts that I could really say of my faith story, that really understood my dad and his wisdom, always taught me that forgiveness. See, we weren't allowed to say, "I'm sorry," when we were growing up, because that was always a kid thing. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
really?
We weren't allowed to do that. We had to
Mm.
make things right. When we were told, when there was ever a problem, we were told we had to make things right. And the way we made things right, and you would say, "I was wrong. Please forgive me," or "Would you please forgive me?"
I
That's what
see.
we had to do to move on.
Mm.
And so then to understand, because of all the hurts and the things that I went through, and the challenges I had in my life, and that he taught me what forgiveness was. And pure forgiveness is that you remember the past, but don't feel the hurts. And when I was able, and God was able to, I guess one of the gifts God was able to give me is that I could have that forgiving forward attitude, that I
Mm.
could go through and understand. I could remember all the hurts that happened. I can
Mm.
remember the things that happened, but I didn't have to feel them anymore, because God
Mm.
redeemed me from it. And he gave me that
Yeah.
everlasting joy, or everlasting peace, that
Peace.
realized that
Yes.
nothing that I can do or
Mhm.
have done or will do that will earn that. And that because of that, now I can walk it out. Now I have
Yeah.
freedom to be more in Christ, not freedom
Yes.
to do other things in the world. And so to
Right.
understand that really helped me with my faith story. And if you don't mind, I got a couple pictures to share, just to kind of
Sure.
illustrate how this thing goes forward. So
Yeah.
let me just
Please
set
do.
up. All right, great. Let me just share my screen and to go forward. So one of our ministries that we do, because I really believe in this world today, that it's a composite, and one of the passions that I have is that men are being taken out in today's society. They're not told, the Mr. Rogers is what most of the world thinks that Christian men should be like, when
Uh-huh.
really God wants Braveheart men. God
Yeah.
wants men
Bold.
that are bold, that are Davids, that are willing to
Yes.
stand, that are willing to fight for
Mhm.
their families, fight for their
Mhm.
country, fight for their church, but teach their daughters how they should be treated, and mentor and man train, what I call man training their sons of
Yeah.
how to be more than it is. So, one of the things is my dad is my hero, and he really illustrated, but growing up being a pastor and then also starting the financial coaching and how important that was to really make a difference in people's lives by educating them,
Right.
that we were able to do that. So my tribute, I lost him this year in February, and I miss him every day, but
I'm
he's really
sorry.
made an impact.
Yes.
But what is legacy? See, what a legacy person is. See, a legacy is a part of a person that lives on long after that person has passed.
Mm-hmm.
A legacy also leaves behind the story of a
Mm.
person so that they are not forgotten.
True. Yes.
Legacies are important paths or the future to follow or to be guided by in order to make better decisions in lives. And when I realized that, I had no idea my part of the story of this legacy. But they understand is that now I can have a legacy for men, for women, through Women World Leaders, through men, through
Mm-hmm.
Band of Brothers and United Men of Honor, and then also in our globally, because I believe you got to be successfully to be significant. And through kirasglobal.org, our educational organization that we're
Yeah.
part of, and my aunt, who's
Mm-hmm.
like my sister, runs that organization. We have 3 orphan care centers and now building a safe house and teaching about how anti-trafficking can work in this society. What kind of
Right.
legacy? You can have a legacy with your family, but you also can have a legacy in your community and
Mm-hmm.
globally.
Yep.
So one of the things is that I do have 200 years of godly men. And so I started in
Mm.
the 1700s. There's a Hezekiah Hobbs. And Hezekiah, I don't know much about Hezekiah Hobbs, but I know his son was Charles Hobbs. And I knew that
Oh,
Charles, in the 1800s, and then
yeah.
Henry Buell Hobbs in the 18 and early 1900s was my grandfather, and Jasper Hobbs was my grandfather. He was my dad's dad, and he was taken, in a car accident, and when I was
Oh,
15. But the impact that he made in my life goes on. And then Kenneth Hobbs, which is my dad, and
yeah.
my brother Kevin. I have 3 brothers that we
Uh-huh.
were able to share. But to have 200 years of godly men and that
Mm.
legacy, what that does is
Wow.
that legacy didn't change my life. It helped me rearrange my life
Mm-hmm.
and gave me a hope for a future. See, what I was talking about is how important my faith story was, is that my grandfather, you see there, and my
Yep.
grandfather, I believe that it takes grandparents in addition to parents, especially with broken families today and people not having moms or dads to interact with them on a daily basis, that a
Yeah.
grandfather or grandmother can have such an impact. Jasper Hobbs made such an impact in my life. And then my grandfather, who was an evangelist and pastor, Reverend Rudy Sorello Sr., and he's 95. Matter of fact, we're traveling at the end of the month to go celebrate his 95th birthday.
Amen.
And he's been ordained for over 70 years. And the things that with the voice of healing and stuff, and having these prayer warriors and having these people in our lives was what built my faith, but also gave me the security that when my life fell apart at different times, where
Mm.
I went through a 20-year marriage, and then it just disappeared, and she decided to go do
Yeah.
something else, and my son stayed with me. It was my faith, my family, my business, and the
Mm-hmm.
people that were around, and the impact
Mm-hmm.
that we're able to do. And
Mm-hmm.
now in able to have that kind of impact myself, into the next
Yeah.
generation, the grandchildren, to be able to have that is something so important. And one of the last things is to be able to be in a marketplace ministry. That's my
Right.
brother Kevin, and who serves one of my partners in business, and my dad, who obviously who started. And so, being able to have this marketplace ministry, and I'll come back to, I'll stop sharing here. And
Well, Ken, I'm sorry, but I never saw to add stream here.
oh, okay. So
So we
you just
haven't been
let
able
me
to
talk.
see any of the photos.
Oh, okay. Well, it's no
But
problem. We'll
no,
just
no,
move
no,
on.
no.
'Cause I know we're
You
short on
want to
time.
try it again?
I can. I can.
Yeah,
Oh, if you
because we
don't,
do.
let's see. All right, I'm going to share screen
Because we did.
again.
We worked with this prior to us
We
going live,
did.
so
Well,
we know it works.
all things work together. I do.
Oh,
I am sharing
there
now.
you
So
go. I
and
can
let's go
add
back to
to
the
stream.
PowerPoint. Are you able to see the PowerPoint now?
I see us. I see our
All
screen.
right,
I
I have
don't
the
see. There you
PowerPoint up. It
go.
says I'm
There you
sharing.
go.
All right. Well, that was what I was talking about is just to understand that, how passionate I is. And, there's my dad who was, I would mention there is my hero and did a lot, so much to impact
Oh,
on us and our family and to leave
see
generational
you in a
financial
second.
coaching businesses and to be partners and
Oh,
family. And that's when I was quoting the legacy quote. This is where I got this from, and how important
oh,
legacy is, because I believe you're right. See, my 200 years, what I talked about is my 200 years of godly men, happened before. And I'm so thankful that I've had that legacy. But you know what? The listeners
absolutely.
listening today, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever you're listening to, you can start your 200 years today. See, you
Yes.
can be that godly person, that mentor, that mother, that woman world leaders,
Mm,
or that band of brother, or that United Men of Honor, and you can go and start impacting and building your faith story, and then be able to impact for 200 years down line of your generation. And that's one
yeah.
of the things I talk about, and that's what God gives us, is that opportunity, because we don't know. And I showed my grandfather Jasper Hobbs and what the impact was, and how
Oh,
he was taken when I was 15 in a head-on car accident, but his life, what he did for
mm,
me, and how he made such an impact was there. And
yes.
and then there was Reverend Rudy Sorello, which I mentioned, and he'd been a minister for 70 years, and we're going to celebrate his 95th birthday, and him and my
Oh,
grandmother, and traveling the world, and did the
how
revival time
blessed.
crusades, and and doing the tent meetings, and the legacy that was there, but then
Yeah.
also the healings, to be able to go through, and the things that I saw that I just cannot unsee, that it just makes me believe, even more. And then to be able to be the grandfather and be able to pass on for the next generation, and then to go forward and just understand the legacy of
Oh,
being in business with your family. But as far as our marketplace ministry, that's one of the things that our band of brothers has been able to utilize, is that we can take the people that we have impact on and invite them to an activity weekend. And we're
yeah.
getting ready for our next boot camp. And I'll end my story with this: is our next boot camp is coming up November 11th through 14th. And anybody listening would like to come to Florida to come experience, we're going to helicopter rides and airboats and gun range, and we're going to pig hunt, and we're going to have
Oh,
all
fun.
kinds of extreme sports, and we have
Yeah.
cornhole and competitions and dominoes competitions, and there's so much that can be done, and
Oh,
we make an impact. We use the John Eldredge Wild at Heart boot camp outline, and we share and make an impact. So between having a complete composite of the women world leaders, the band of brothers, United
mm,
Men of Honor, and then to be able to have internationally through Kira's Global and safe house projects and stuff. It's just, I believe that such a time as this, it's time for us to get busy, share our faith
absolutely.
like you're doing. Thank you for so
Yeah.
much for doing this. This is such a
Yeah.
blessing to everyone, that you can have this venue that people can share and to get their stories out. And
Yeah.
who knows where we go from there? Maybe Women World Leaders TV or United Men of Honors TV or productions or
Yeah.
whatever. Who knows what we got? We're going to pray
Who
about it.
knows?
We're going to do it, but we're going to just stand and walk in faith every day.
Absolutely. And how powerful this faith story is, and the legacy that you've had through these godly men, and what a blessing. What a
Oh,
blessing that is.
I stand here in awe, and I
Oh,
just going forward, and I just believe that when people are going through challenges, remember there are people there that could be your faith story. It could be your legacy, whether
absolutely.
they don't even have to be biological parents. They could be your spiritual mentors, your
Yes.
spiritual parents, because no man fights alone. Every
Yes.
woman has a group, and that's what they got to
Yes.
do. And that's what I believe in this
Yes.
world as it's changing. It's going to become so much more necessary.
And we were discussing a little bit about women world leaders, uh, and and how powerful that is. There's so many wonderful prayer warriors, and sometimes you can just feel the Holy Spirit through
Yes.
those prayers, and it's wonderful, and I'm humbled and honored to be a part of that.
Oh,
So yeah, it's just a blessing. It
it
really
is.
is a blessing.
It is what God has created from all of this, and where we go
Yes,
from here, we don't know. But I encourage people, get involved with us. Come walk alongside
absolutely.
of us. Nothing, we don't make any money from this. We're here just to bless others and cross resource for men, for
That's
women,
awesome.
for children, for whatever needs to be done.
Yes, yes, and I'll be happy to put some links after the broadcast
Perfect.
and for you. So if you have a registration for your boot camp
Yep.
or anything like that, hang with me after the broadcast, and I'll get those links from you.
Perfect.
One thing I want to ask before we leave is, Ken, what is one thing that we can do to hold on to our faith in this ever-changing world?
Well, I know that's a powerful question, and one thing to hold on to our faith. I believe it's community. I
Mm,
believe that one of the biggest things, the men need men, women need women, and
right. We
children
need
need
each other.
families. They
Yes.
need community. And I do believe, like we talk about in ours, that we talk about putting on the whole armor of God, that we've got
Yes.
to have on the helmet of salvation because our brain is getting dirty from all this news and bad
e-
news and world events and stuff.
Exactly.
We got to wash our brain, with the
Yes.
salvation of the God, and then be able to have the breastplate of righteousness so other people can
Mm,
see the good works that God allows us to do
absolutely.
because we are there, and then also have the belt of truth and the sandals and the shoes of good
Yes.
news. But the two offensive weapons that I really do, and that's one of the big things I do, is the sword and the shield. The shield
Sword and
about me
shield.
is your faith, and your faith in an ever-changing world.
Absolutely.
You got to build up your faith. David
Yes.
said that he built up his faith, and that's why we need to build a bigger
Every
shield.
day.
Exactly, for our families, for our communities, for ourselves every day. Exactly. And then the
Hmm.
sword is the word. And that is our only offensive. The shield and the sword are
Yes.
only offensive weapons in this because we are fighting a battle and it's coming out and they're looking to
Absolutely.
take men out, take families out, take women out, and then obviously with the trafficking, take the children out.
Mm,
And I believe
mm,
that's our faith story, is that's
mm.
what I believe is we
Yeah,
armor up daily and we get in community where we got each other's
absolutely.
back. We got a chance to move forward, just like the early church.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And do not be conformed to this world.
That's right. Be transformed. We got
Yeah,
to be
absolutely.
transformers.
That's it. That's
That's
it. Ken,
exactly.
thank you so much for
Oh, thank
sharing
you.
this powerful faith story and your legacy with us. And thank you all for watching. Have faith and look up, friends, where our help comes from. Bye. God bless.
Bye bye. God bless.